Hello, welcome to the Pursuit of Excellence with me, Anthony Beirudi. Need your help real quick. If you like the videos, hit the thumbs up button right below, and please subscribe to get access to our latest interviews. Hit the subscribe button right there. Also, we'd love to hear from you about our interviews. In the comment section, tell us who you want us to interview or what you thought about the whole thing. Without further ado, enjoy the interview. All right, we're very excited. We're joined by Jake Prepchuk. Thank you very much for joining us, Jake.
Hey, great to be here. In crazy times, but it's always great to talk sports and always great to talk to you, Anthony.
Fantastic. So let's go back in time to the very beginning. Where'd you grow up? What were the sports when you started? Give me the whole rundown.
Oh boy, my life really was molded by where I grew up, right? So Regina, Saskatchewan, good old prairie boy, right? And right from the time that I could walk, I had a football in my hand and a hockey stick in my hand in the wintertime. And in the wintertime, we were playing shinny road hockey outside. And in the summertime, it was football every night. Just sports. Taylor Field in Regina, of course, we lived a couple of miles away. So we would be there, for every Riders game. I mean, it really was a big deal in Regina. You hear the people that are from the prairies know what I mean, right? But if you're not from the prairies, it certainly is unique, right? It was every weekend, and Mom would make sure that we had the groceries if it was a game on TV, and if it was a home game, then we would all bundle up and make our way to Taylor Field. And grade 7 made the big move out here. It was a shock for me to move from Regina, Saskatchewan to North Vancouver. I mean, all of a sudden I was like, whoa, look at these mountains. And of course we lived right by, right up top of Capilano by Cleveland Dam there. And it was like, man, this is crazy, up these hills, up Capilano Road. And it was bizarre, right? So grade 7 there, and GSL football right away. My first crack at football here in Vancouver. Of course, I played a lot when I was young. Played everything, of course, growing up in Regina: baseball, football, basketball. But when we made our way out here and then out to Handsworth School, and had a great opportunity to play basketball and football there, and great coaching, great teammates. From there, was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to Simon Fraser University as a quarterback.
Hold on a second. Let's go back. You're skipping through stuff. Were you good right away? Were you always good at football? Like, was it like right away? Did you know, like, I'm kind of better than the other kids at this?
No, because I wasn't the best athlete. I wasn't the biggest guy. And kind of the crazy story about my football life as a quarterback was, all my life I played football since I was probably 7 years old in Regina. And all my life I was actually an offensive lineman and a linebacker. So even at Handsworth, grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, I was the starting left guard in football at Handsworth, and starting middle linebacker. And that winter, that January of our grade 12 year, actually, or our grade 11 year, our quarterback that had played for us for many years, he broke his leg playing soccer. So Coach Pierce, good old Dave Pierce, that a lot of people know and still good buddies with myself. Dave came up to me and said, Jay, you are going to be our quarterback at Handsworth next year. And I'm like, are you crazy? All my life, 10 years of playing football, I was an offensive lineman. And so, you know what? I said, okay, Dave. Okay, Coach. And here we are, 1 year of playing quarterback in grade 12 at Handsworth. Simon Fraser obviously was scouting myself play, and we threw the heck out of the ball, had some great receivers. Of course, Jerome Erdman, who played in the CFL for 8 years for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Mike Bellefontaine was my other receiver, and he played in the CFL for a lot of years. So
you had two. Hold on a second. You had 2 CFL receivers on your high school team.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. It was like Coach Pierce, obviously, give him all the credit in the world for seeing the fact. I mean, ever since grade 8, he was my PE teacher. He was our basketball coach, so he knew me, knew my competitive nature. He knew that I was a hard worker. Knew that I could throw the ball every day. And, he was our PE teacher. So we would always play against each other because Dave was, he was a good quarterback himself, right? So Dave would play quarterback and I would play quarterback for the other team. And we'd battle it out in PE class, right? And so Dave said, Jay, you're going to play quarterback. And got the 1 year in, 8 games of playing quarterback. And all of a sudden, the Simon Fraser coaches are in my house with my mom and dad offering me a football scholarship. And I'm like, Mom's like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, Mom is so excited. She, of course, made the cake and the coffee for Coach Beaton. We still talk Coach Beaton, of course, longtime coach at SFU. He was the assistant at that time. But Coach Beaton was like, came over and I think he ate like 4 pieces of cake. I still remind him. I was like, Coach Beaton is like, Chris, you're still chowing down on Mom's cake. And he always asks me, has Mom made a cake lately? I said, no, I got to get you some, right? So anyway, signed the papers for Simon Fraser. And
did you get other schools or was it just Simon?
Just Simon, actually. Honestly, I didn't have Frank Smith always told me at UBC that he would have recruited me. But even at that time, I didn't have a second language to get in. A good note that, for athletes to still know that you need a second language to get into UBC and for Simon Fraser now. But so, Frank always said that he would have recruited me and would have loved to have me, with the Thunderbirds. But, I think that SFU, just because I was local and they saw it. And you know what, Anthony, it's changed a lot. There's not as much recruiting, University of Calgary, say, or Saskatchewan, they wouldn't have recruited Vancouver kids, like they do now, right? So as you know, it's really a national process of recruiting with all athletes. And so, at the time, I think it was just the fact that I had that 1 year of playing quarterback at SFU. And from there, Simon Fraser was really the only ones that recruited me. So that's where I was going. It was nice to stay home and it was nice to be able to live at home because, of course, a lot of the players, were from back east. And I don't know if I would have survived if I had lived on my own at that time, right? So 4 years at Simon Fraser University, and
so
first
how's
year
the team when you got there?
Pardon me?
How's the team when you got there?
Team was good. I mean, solid players. I mean, I looked around and I was like, these guys are all the whole offensive line went on and played in the CFL, right? Like great players. Like, I think that out of that offense, probably the 11 guys, thinking of the tight end played, you know what? All of us went on and had some sort of career in the CFL. Mine was only for a 2-week training camp, but every one of those players, except for our center, actually went on and played in the CFL, which was, pretty amazing, of course, right? So it was phenomenal, Anthony. I mean, these players were great players, right? And not only were they great players, but they were great role models for all of us. It was something that I tried to carry through, when I was a senior, to help the younger players, to help the guys as they would go through their process, picking the classes, making sure they're academically eligible, making sure they're right on track, and so on. And of course, making sure that, they were working out, lifting, and had a good balance of academics and athletics, working out, but still able to have fun. I mean, you're in university and you're having a good time, but, Anthony, we started with 55 freshmen. We walked in that gym in August of 1979, 55 freshmen, 55 guys together. We finished with 5 of us finished together out of all those 4 years. So many guys just couldn't handle it, couldn't make it. And the 5 guys, we had a little reunion a couple of weeks ago and got together. We're on a little texting chat. We figured that out. We got everybody together. So it's pretty incredible that, you have that bond and you're still able to kind of stay together. But it was a great experience.
You get minutes right away? How'd that go?
No, I didn't actually. Well, my very first game, we played the Montana Tech Diggers, and I wasn't the starting quarterback, but we were kicking their butt pretty good, and I actually got in for 6 plays in my very first game, and I still remember throwing a little 126 power pass to my tight end Jamie Buis, who I'm still good buddies with, and at that time he was about 70 pounds lighter and playing tight end. He was also a big high school basketball player from Delta, of course, right? And so Jamie went on and had a great career as an offensive lineman with the BC Lions. But I threw a pass to Jamie and completed it. I was 1 for 1, and I thought this was great. University football is lots of fun, and that was my only time. My first year, they just kept the starter in, and it was frustrating because looking back on it, I lost my redshirt year. I couldn't get a year back because I played. I had six plays in that first year, and basically lost my year because of that. I know they changed the rules a little bit, right? But from that time, so you know what? Honestly, my first year was a little bit of a challenge. It was a little bit obviously different. You're coming from, big man on campus in high school, and all of a sudden there's 100 guys in the team. Guys got kids, guys got beards, guys got this is like, wow, what a transition. And I was just like, you know what? There were a couple of times when I wondered, what am I doing here, right? And then my second year, my sophomore year, I got a chance.
I want to talk about that for a second. So,
yeah,
one of the things I'm seeing a lot is kids, they have that adversity, which you have there, and they quit. And obviously it happened with you as well, because you have 55 guys start and 5 finish. So guys just can't handle it. And, we know how the story ends. It ends up going pretty good. But, I bet you if I asked you halfway through that season, what do you think? This is going to work out? You would have been like,
Oh, I would have even been more negative than that. It was tough. I remember coming home in late October when it was just like ugly rain out and just practicing, but not even getting a sniff to play. And Dave Pierce, my high school coach, his van was at the house, and came in, and Mom and Dad and Dave sat me down and said, "What are you going to do here, kid?" Like, Dad gave the old, okay, if you're not going to go to university, here's your shovel, right? You're going out to work, right? And I was like, well, I'll stick this out, right? And even academically, I passed all my courses, but I didn't do that well. And I just came back that January of my first year, and I said, you know what? This is a golden opportunity for me. It's a chance for my education to be paid for. Obviously, let's stick it out, right? I did really well my second semester. We got a new head coach, and he said right away, "Jay, we're going to give you a chance." That spring training, I worked my butt off, trained hard, did well school-wise, and spring training, they gave me a chance, and I was competing for the number 1 job. So going into my sophomore year, my second year, was really positive, and I knew that I was going to have a chance, because the starting quarterback at the time, a guy named Dave Amer, 6'4", 230. He knew that he was going to play in the CFL, but he knew that he was never going to make it as a quarterback, right? So he's like, he wanted me to do well as a quarterback, right? He was playing quarterback because he was the best quarterback at the time in the program. So I came back in my sophomore year, and Dave and I, were great friends, and I got my reps, and finally got a chance to play, because we had opened in our sophomore year, we had a really difficult schedule. Like, we started in Idaho, Montana State. Like, we're playing all these killer schools, obviously, right? Like, teams that were just, way above our level, right? But it was great for the guys, because they got a chance to, compete against the great competition and end up going into the CFL and so on, right? So anyways, the first game, we were getting killed, and coach put me in, and we were able to march down. We had like 3 touchdown passes in that first game, and second game we were in Montana getting kicked again, and I got a chance to play again in the fourth quarter, threw a couple of touchdown passes, and all of a sudden, game 4, I believe it was like all of a sudden I got a chance to start, and it was like, from there it was just it was a fantastic experience. And I really appreciated the fact that my coach had faith in me, and we just threw the heck out of the ball, right? I mean, like I said, we had guys that were amazing receivers that went on and played in the CFL, and so my sophomore year, we really got it rolling, and kind of that's how my career really started taking off at Simon Fraser.
So, one of the things that kids don't get is, you had mentioned previously, academics, you had to get your stuff together. And if you don't get your stuff together, they actually don't let you go to the school anymore. And so,
that's right.
As good as you want. This isn't, Kentucky, where they'll let you play. You don't get to play anymore. So, what was the kind of the turning point for you that you said, you know what, I'm gonna actually, I gotta spend the time. I gotta put it in. I gotta lock in. I gotta figure it out, and I gotta try to, at least show some respectable marks, because that never happened for me. I never actually did the respectable marks thing. But what turned it for you?
I think it was just that, that Christmas holiday between in my very first year there, I got my marks back, and I had passed everything, but I didn't do as well as I certainly should have. And I just said to myself coming back in January that, I'm going to make this happen. Right. And I started to approach my academics a lot differently. I didn't, I came out of high school. I was never a great student, but I had to work really hard. And even through my university career academically, I had to really work my butt off. Right. And it was tough at those times because most of my buddies weren't even going to university. Right. Like, they're 18, 19-year-old guys just out of high school. What do you do? They're out partying. They're out having fun. They're enjoying their freedom out of school for the first time in 12 years. So I kind of had to, say, hey, I'm studying tonight, or I had to do this. And that January, again, we got a new head coach that I met with early in the semester, and he said to me right away that he's going to give me a chance to play. And I got into some really good courses that I enjoyed and I liked, and I just worked my butt off. And of course, at Simon Fraser, NCAA, you have to take, it's 4 courses a term, right? I know, of course, in youth sport, as most of you've got to be take 3 courses to be eligible anyways. So it was 4 courses first term, 4 courses basically every term. And so the 4 courses I had, I enjoyed. I just worked really hard at it, and that got into the training thing. The alumni kind of helped me out a little bit. I'd be up there and working out with the alumni, and they would be encouraging and say, Jay, you're gonna have a great career. And so they were very, very supportive through the whole process. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to do this. And after that second term, my second term overall in my first year, I came up with, I think, a B average. And I was like, whoa, this is great. And that summer continued to train and went into my sophomore year. Anthony, I always look back to that pivotal moment in my life and say, where would I be if I didn't stick with it, right? If I had quit, if I had stopped like the 50 other guys that quit, right? Where would I be today? What would I have? And I just look back to, again, my parents being so supportive, Dave Pierce, my high school coach, being so supportive, and just like, Jay, you can do this, having faith in me, and my coaches at SFU, new coaching staff, having faith in me, and was able to really turn it around academically, and things really fell into place athletically for me, right? But like I said, I was never a great student, right? I had to work my butt off. I was never a great athlete, right? I had to work my butt off to be a great quarterback, right? I mean, I was fortunate to have I could throw properly. I was taught at a young age to throw the ball by Ron Lancaster in Regina. So, of course, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever in the CFL. He actually taught me how to throw football properly. And then, just continued to weight train and play basketball and play sports and skip, and just have the determination to continue with it. And, again, it worked out pretty well for me.
Yeah, okay. Well, for sure, we know you will be wearing a different T-shirt. That's for sure.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So you go into your third year. You have a pretty good third and fourth year. Give me a little quick rundown of how those went.
Yeah, well, again, we continued to play difficult schools, so we would open in Idaho, and ironically, we're opening in Idaho next September against the Vandals in the Kibbie Dome in Moscow. So it's funny when the coaches are always talking about, oh, we're opening in Montana, and I go, well, we were there 40 whatever years ago it was, right? So we had a difficult, it was challenging because we continued to play those schools like Idaho and Montana State, Portland State, San Luis Obispo. Those teams were obviously challenging for us to play against, right? But, again, we stuck together. We obviously had great players. Like I said, a lot of those guys that went on and played in the CFL after. So, you know what? We weren't my sophomore year. I think we were like 4-5, and we beat Eastern Washington. That was a big, big game for us. I still remember that game because I started in that game, and we won. After that, again, junior, senior year, as we were kind of independent, right? So we didn't have playoffs or anything like that for us, but, we would be playing, and it was tough because it was challenging because we played against some obviously really, really good schools that, for the most part, we weren't overly successful against them, but, it really prepared us and our players for, the next level. And, like I said, probably 80% of the guys that started with our teams at SFU at that time, they went on and played in the CFL. So it was a good challenge. So we continued, like I said, we were usually down because, again, we were playing against superior teams. So the coach that we had wanted to continue to throw the ball. So there would be games when I was throwing the ball 40, 45, 50 times a game, right? So, I mean, I loved it, right? Because I could just, throw the ball, right? And so again,
that's common now, but that really wasn't the case back then. Most teams are doing, power running back. They're doing full backs. They're doing all that sort of thing. Switch down more to a spread it out and let it fly type situation. Now your coach was ahead of his time?
Yeah, actually he was, because he had taken this offense basically that he got from a coach named Dennis Erickson, who was actually coaching in Idaho at the time. And Dennis Erickson, for a lot of you folks that know football, he, went on, of course, and coached in the NFL with the Seahawks. And at that time, it was actually a good question, Anthony, because at that time, he kind of developed a quick passing game, right? And we didn't have shotgun or anything like that at that time, unfortunately. I think I would have been a good shotgun quarterback, right? But it was all quick game stuff. So 1-step throw, 1, 2, 3 throw, with a little bit of motion, and teams weren't really used to seeing that. And so it was a kind of an innovative offense that was developed from Dennis Erickson, who went from Idaho to University of Miami, and then, of course, in the NFL for a lot of years, right? And I think he's still coaching. I think he was at Arizona State a few years ago. Anyway, so we took his offense and put it into our system at Simon Fraser. And teams had trouble with us, right? Because we would move the ball, right? We would be passing for well over 300 yards in most of our games. And we especially had success with that offense against Canadian schools. So, the kind of strange thing about our schedule that a lot of people don't know is that we would play American schools, but the following week we would maybe play University of Saskatchewan or University of Calgary. And of course, we'd always play the Shrum Bowl at the end of the year, right? So we would have to switch from American rules to Canadian rules. Like, I love going to Canadian football because extra man obviously is an extra defender, but we would, it just seemed like the field, obviously it is, 15 yards wider. It just seemed like the Red Sea was parting, and I was just like, I love playing Canadian football. And, a lot of the Canadian teams that we played against, they weren't used to seeing this type of passing attack, right? And so we did have success against those Canadian schools, and really enjoyed that, that kind of quick game, the 90s passing game from Dennis Erickson that we implemented. And I'm still, we still use some of those principles now.
So you brought it up, so I'm going to ask. Tell me about the Shrum Bowl. I think it's a travesty that both athletic directors at the two universities don't force the schools to play each other. I think the presidents of the university should force them to play each other. If this was America, they would force them to play each other. They're the two predominant schools that we have in our province in all sports, and they don't play each other. And maybe COVID will force them to play each other this year. But talk about the heritage and how cool that was, and what it was like to actually do that sort of thing.
Well, for us, it was a little different for us than it was with UBC, because of course UBC was playing for the national championship, the Canadian national championship, right? And so, they had their league, they had their games, and it was a unique situation. But for us, it really meant, most of the season for us. So my first year at Simon Fraser, we lost in a torrential rainstorm. We lost like 4-3. I didn't play in that game, but again, it just showed the amazing coaching from Frank Smith at UBC, because we had great players my first year, right? Second year was the year that we really came on. We played the mid-year, which I still remember. It was the middle of October, and that was when we were just starting to gel. It was probably my third start ever, and we ended up beating them 30-3. And, I was able to get the MVP trophy in that game, but only because our team was, probably played our best game collectively, offensively, defensively, special teams wise. Everything just clicked, and we played at Empire Stadium. Anthony, 18,000 fans. I can still remember kind of looking up in the stands, kind of as you're coming off the field, and the fans are just going crazy. There's fans, running on the track, and there's, security all over the place. Like, the atmosphere was absolutely incredible, right? So for us, it was everything. So we had won that game as a sophomore, and then our junior year and then our senior year we lost. But I remember that because talking to the UBC players after, they had just won the national champ. That was their 1982 team, which is, to this day, they still say maybe the greatest team ever in Canadian college football, right? And so Frank had his team, and they were back east. Rob Ross was on that team, and the Bruce Barnetts, and all those great, great players that a lot of people obviously know about from, not just football, but basketball and so on. So anyways, those guys, they beat Western Ontario in the national championship that year. And then they came back home. And I remember talking to the players after our game, they were like, we didn't celebrate at all. Like, and if you know Coach Smith, he's pretty intense, and he's a driven coach at UBC. And Coach Smith was like, we're not celebrating. We're coming home. We're getting on the plane tomorrow morning. We're coming home, and we're meeting right away at Thunderbird Stadium because we have to beat Simon Fraser. Like, if we win the national championship against Western Ontario and then we come home and lose to Simon Fraser, then we're not national champions, right? So the guys were like, oh, Coach. And so we came back and we lost. That was our last game. That was my last game. We lost 19-6 at Empire Stadium. And I mean, we hung in there with them. We probably played them tighter than anybody, but we did lose that game. And it was just, I still to this day, of course, remember that. And I look back at the articles, and I still, sports writers still come back and write about it. And you still see the pictures. And I still got, the pictures and the articles up in my room behind me from the Shrum Bowl, right? So for us, it truly was everything. And I think, for the UBC players too, even though they had won the national championship, it wouldn't have meant anything for them if they didn't beat us, a week later, kind of thing, right? So You're right, Anthony. It's a shame. Like, I mean, come on, BC Place. Let's get it into BC Place. Wouldn't that have been great? BC Place.
This one? How about you play a game and somebody's actually at the game watching because people actually care? But anyway, that's a different story altogether. Yeah. So now you graduate. You try out with the Lions. You get 2 weeks. You said, what happened after that?
So the ironic thing about it is I had to try it with Saskatchewan. So here's me coming home again, and I'm telling, mom came home like in, it was probably January of my senior year. Football career's over. You kind of bummed out, right? Like all athletes, sooner or later you got to say, that's it, right? And all of a sudden the Saskatchewan Roughriders call me up and they're like, Jay, we want you to come and try out for the Roughriders. I'm like, oh my God. I tell my mom, and again, that's another mom moment where she's like, oh my God, you're going to try out not only in the CFL, but you're going to try out with Saskatchewan. You're going back home, right? So anyways, get to Saskatchewan. And at that time, again, that was 1983. The May of 83, had a great tryout with the Riders. I mean, I competed. They had experienced quarterbacks there. John Huffnagel was there, of course, the GM in Calgary now. Joe 747 Adams. Homer Jordan had just got there from an undefeated Clemson team. He was a quarterback there, and he had a solid career in the CFL. And then I came in and, I thought I competed. I thought I, was able to throw with those guys anyways. Anyways, got cut. Came back home. One positive about that is the day I got home, I got to get up to my SFU commencement ceremonies at up on the hill, and it was a proud moment for my parents. So I was proud that I was, I had graduated from university, obviously. And then I played actually 1 year with the Vancouver Marilomas. I still had a year of junior football left, and got all my buddies together that I played with at high school. And we had a great year with the Vancouver Marilomas. Of course, no more Mariloma football, but of course that's junior football, right? And had a great year with them. And at that time I started coaching at Vancouver College and was taking my education at UBC, and I was well on my way with my career.
What year is this?
That was 83. So I was at SFU 79, 80, 81, 82. And then 83 was tried out with the Riders, came home. And the summer of 83 played with the Vancouver Marilomas and was coaching again at Vancouver College, coaching the junior varsity team at the time, Bart Hall and Matt Clark and all those guys at Vancouver College. That was really when I started my I was the head coach of the JVs at Vancouver College, and I was like 23 years old. It was great.
Awesome. So in '93, you end up starting, the Prepchuk football camp, and it's now been, you're going for 27 years. I don't think you can possibly imagine that's what it was going to be like when you started. But what was that like to kind of say, you know what, let's start this? What gave you the initiative to get going with it?
Yeah, it was, I had seen some of the other camps going on. Of course, we all know the great Dan Masisko, right? And I remember going to Dan Masisko's camp in grade 12, his basketball camp. And Anthony, of course, you're familiar with Dan and Dynamic Dan and all his energy and so on, right? And then just, it was just one evening in my basement. I'm just like sitting there. How can, I want to quarterbacks started to come to me for coaching. So I do a little bit of one-on-one coaching. And then I'm just like, hey, let's run a camp. And I still remember the first camp we had at Windsor School, and it just kind of ballooned from there. And it was just so exciting to be able to get out there. And that was the first. We always just had the summer camp, so we'd have like 40 or 50 quarterbacks from all over BC that would come, and then more would come from different places in Western Canada, and some kids from back east. And then we just, we kind of went from there with it.
Yeah, and so you end up coaching and you get the job at UBC.
Yeah, so at that time, I was at Windsor School at the time, and we developed we kind of brought the football program back to life at Windsor. I got there in '87, and we kind of were grinding away with it, and we were building and building and building. We got some good coaches in, Steve Martin. We were able to get Steve in, and he helped. Of course, he was with the seniors and kind of junior. We worked together, had some great coaching, and then started the run at Windsor School in '94, lost in the finals, and then we won 3 of the 4 at Windsor, AA championships. And '99, I went to UBC. So '99, I had the opportunity to go to UBC as the head coach. And, that was an interesting process itself, because here's a high school coach. Everybody said, Prepchuk, you're not going to get this job, right? The Vanier Cup, 2 coaches from the Vanier Cup, University of Saskatchewan and Concordia, who had played in the Vanier Cup the year before, both their head coaches applied, had interviews. All these guys with NFL experience, CFL experience, they all were applying for the job. I applied for the job and, ended up getting it, of course, and spent 3 really wonderful years there as the head coach at UBC. And, our first year, great players. Sean Olsen was our quarterback, and we had Akbal Singh as a tailback, Tyson St. James, and just an outstanding team. Not my team that I had recruited previously, that's for sure. But we finished 7-1 and lost a close game in the Western final after that. A couple more years of coaching UBC, and I said, you know what? I had young kids at the time, and I'm like, I had to make a decision. My leave of absence at the North Vancouver School District was 3 years, so that was up. That I want a guaranteed, job. So I went back to high school teaching and continued all with the camps. So the camps have kind of continued, even though my career has evolved and my career has changed here and there. We're still able to kind of squeeze those camps in and expand, of course, right, and run more camps across Canada, which has been lots of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And you've done a little bit you've gone to Handsworth, you went back to Simon, you went back to UBC, you're back at Simon now. What's it like seeing all the different types of coaches out there?
It's great. And I was talking to a couple of the coaches, the PE guys that I was with, Billy Copeland, one of the a hockey guy that has been around for a lot of years, right? And we were talking about how it's just such a great experience to be able to watch other coaches coach, right? Like, no matter where I am, I'll drive by Carson Graham School and I'll stop and I'll watch the GSL guys, the 10-year-olds, and I'll watch and I'll learn something from one of the coaches, or I'll listen to one of the coaches say something, right? Or I'll, I referee basketball. I watch, honestly, I watch you coach, right? And I go, I really like his style. I've never heard you really yell at the players, but your communication style obviously is very effective. I watch I watch the NFL guys, but the guys that I've been associated with, I mean, I was fortunate to have a Dave Pierce in high school that was so passionate about football and just so competitive, right? That was just, and then working with Frank Smith, who really taught me the X's and O's. When I was coaching in high school, I would go over every summer before training camp, and I'd sit in his office. We'd lock ourselves in there for like 3 hours, and I would write my entire offense up on the board. And Frank was like, that's great. That's a lot of it was his offense anyways, right? And he would, maybe you could do it this way, right? Like, not, you know what I mean? In his subtle way of communicating with me, right? So Frank would teach me so much stuff. And then, of course, like all of us do, right? You would go to the clinics, right? And when you go to the clinics, it's like, when guys go to clinics, what are they mostly? They're partying, they're having a few pops, and they're like, they're getting up at whatever noon. And I was always, Anthony, those clinics, when I was first started coaching, I was like front row and, 500 people in one auditorium listening to a coach, listening to Pete Carroll talk, or listening to John Robinson talk, or listening to Errol Parsegian or one of those guys. And I'd be asking questions all the time. I think some of the clinicians, when they saw me come in, they were like, oh, not this guy from Canada again. Because it was like they knew I was going to ask them a million different questions. And after I would have their book with me, and I'd get their autograph and so on, right? So it was just like, take it all in, just a sponge. I still grabbed my Nick Saban book the other day, right? And I looked through, and just some of the things that he would talk about characters and Lou Holtz and guys like that, right? Bill Walsh, right? Guys that just were so amazing, not just with X's and O's, but also really about life and teaching you about, working hard and perseverance and all those things, right? So, you know what, I guess to answer your question is, you learn so much from I got a chance to work the last, month with Dan Durazio up at SFU, right? And Dan is like, just an amazing, all the things you've heard from him. You probably read Angus's book, right?
Yeah.
Angus Reid's book, right? And Angus talks about Dan Durazio, obviously, in that book, right? And just the passion that he has in the detail to everything, every step from every player has to be this way, right? Or we attempt to make it this way, right? So just the detail that I learned from Dan in the last month was just, and I'm still, again, 59 years old and still like, give me more, right? I want to learn, right? I'm looking, when's the next coaching book going to come out, right? When is?
So you know what, that's kind of something I was gonna hit on next. Like, one of the things, the way we started talking about this interview was, you posted a picture, you're wearing some Jordan 1s on the football field, which obviously, not too many 59-year-olds are walking around with Jordan 1s with different color laces. And like, how did it, are you doing it on purpose? Are you thoughtfully, like, going out of your way to try to evolve with the times and adjust yourself so that you can stay relevant to your players? Because I think one of the things that coaches do, and I've noticed myself, like, I've analyzed my coaching for a little bit now. I've been coaching for 17 years. Obviously, it's not as long as you, but, for somebody my age, it's quite a bit of time. And I'm like, I used to get my kids to play harder. What did I do back then that got me going? Like, maybe I related more to them, or maybe, you try to analyze what's getting you to, like, you're always trying to do something hip or cool, or social media, you're doing this. At your age, that's pretty rare. What kind of got you doing stuff like that?
Yeah, I've always kind of been, kind of trying to be in style kind of thing, right? And, not only are those Jordans, they're also comfortable, right? And they're also, it's just nice. It's a good question. I think just trying to, not be cool or anything like that, but just kind of relate to the kids. Because like you say, you walk into a gym and you got Jordans on, or you walk down the hall at a school that you've never been at, and kids will look down at your shoes and say, oh, this is kind of cool, right? So I think it's probably a good initial starting point with, any group of kids or whatever, right? But they're, as they're smart kids, right? And they see that even though you're wearing Jordan 1s, you better know what you're talking about when you're going to put in a half court.
No, it just
prep,
gives you,
right?
I think relating to the kids gives you the opportunity to have their attention. And then if you spoil it by giving them crap or not explaining things properly, they'll be like, this guy's fake. He doesn't have it. But if you got it, you had the opportunity and then they give it to you. Now, I had a question come in. It was a guest question. When you were playing flag football, who was your all-time leading receiver?
Was Can I guess who? No. Flag football. I played a lot of flag. I played a lot of touch. I got my touch football Hall of Fame trophy in behind me here, right? My all-time leading receiver. I don't know. Frank Roberto would be up there as one of them. Probably. You know what? All time though, for all the years, it would have definitely been Jim Kelly.
Yeah.
So Jimmy had.
That's what I heard. I heard remember Jim Kelly. Yeah, I heard he had.
I still remember to this day Jimmy making probably one of the greatest catches, and of course, of all the passes that I've ever thrown in my life, the thousands and thousands. I remember a wet, cold, ugly day, and just almost like a Mahomes throw, right, but not accurate. and I kind of chucked it sidearm. And I was like, closed my eyes. I was getting sacked, right, or getting flagged. And I just kind of threw it, right? And I'm on the ground, and I'm looking up. And Jimmy, honest to God, one of the greatest catches that I've ever seen in my life. Jimmy kind of dove, and one-hander picked it up and caught it. And I was like, oh, my God, Jimmy, that was one of the greatest catches ever, right? Seriously. So there you go.
Last question of the day. You know, you clearly love it. Where do you think that love for the game came from, and how does it sustain?
Yeah, I think, it's about passion, right? It's something that I, developed as a young age when I had the mentors, right? Again, the Dave Pierces that, you found a game in football that is just such a unique game, not knocking basketball or any other sports, right? But with football, it really is the ultimate team game, right? And I think you just had to, and the thing about football too, is that you don't have to be the greatest athlete to succeed in football. Like look at the offensive lineman, right? Look at myself growing up, right? I mean, I was able to have a very successful university career, even though I was one of the slowest guys out there, even though I wasn't the biggest guy out there, right? But I studied, I worked my butt off. Offensive lineman. If you are an offensive lineman and you just work your butt off and you train and, you get better, and obviously succeed academically, then, you're going to have a chance. So I think just the combination of the passion of the game that I learned from people like Dave Pierce, that I learned from people like Frank Smith, and it just kind of, my career just kind of smooth one year into the next, and all of a sudden I'm the head coach, and all of a sudden Paul Del Monte and I are the co-head coaches, and we're 25 years old at Vancouver College, and it's just like, wow, we're in Vancouver, one of the greatest high schools to be coaching at, right? It's Saturday, O'Hagan Field, as it's just like outstanding. And then it just kind of led into that, and then continued to, had the chance at UBC, and it's just, I guess, part of my life, part of my innate being, and again, the love, the passion, the opportunity to work and improve the non-athletes, and also to improve and mesh 20 kids together and have the success that we were able to attain.
That's very cool, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's my pleasure. It was great to learn, and I appreciate your time.